countrymen, lend me your ears. I come not to praise Caesar, not to bury him. And I come to welcome you to the annual meeting for 2025. Thank you all for that you do for this congregation, for each other. I would like to start off with a chalice lighting, one that is very similar to the one we had this morning. It is a revamp of a Rumi poem by Leslie Takahashi. Come, come. Come, come, whoever you are. Come with your hurts, your imperfections, your places that feel raw and exposed. Come, come, whoever you are. Come with your strengths that the world shudders to hold. Come with your wild imagination, your wild imaginings of a better world. Come with your hopes that it seems no one wants to hear. Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, we will make a place for you. We will build a home together. Ours is no caravan of despair. We walk together. Come, yet again, come.
Am I on? Yes, I think so. Thank you, Anne. We really appreciate you doing sound today, stepping in. So good morning. This is the agenda. There are a few printed packets in the back there if you want. I think there's 3 to 5 maybe left that Jean has if you would like to grab one. I'm calling this annual meeting of the UUFWC to order at this time. Our parliamentarian today is Bert Bishop. Steve Thomas is up here because he's going to step in as chair for me during a couple moments. Can I get 2 people to be readers for this year's minutes? I have Gail. Can I get one more person? Okay, Tim Briner. Barb, do you have that? Thank you so much. Our first order, if I can get the next slide, I think. I skipped ahead a bunch. Sorry, keep going. Okay. So first, I wanted to remind us all of our mission and vision. This is something that I review before board meetings to make sure that I'm in the right mindset to be doing business on behalf of the UUFWC. So I wanted to put it up there for all of us as we are going into this annual meeting. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County is an inclusive community for spiritual exploration dedicated to social and environmental justice. That's our mission here. And our vision is that we will nurture a community of open hearts and minds, offering all a safe harbor for personal and spiritual growth. We will celebrate diversity and strive to provide compassion, dignity, and justice in the web of life. Thank you. All right, so our first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from last year as written or amended. I believe that Gail and Janice were our readers last year. Do I have a motion to approve, Gail? Scott? Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from last year.
Thank you so much, Gail. Scott would like to second. All right, we're going to test our counters right off the bat. Just so everyone knows, our quorum is 40, and we have 78 here today, counting proxies. So thank you all. We have more than 40 here today, but 78 votes total. So all in favor of approving the minutes for last year's annual meeting? Hold them up so our counters can count. When you have your section counted, signal for me. 21?
Sarah? 23.
23, so 44. 54? 15. Yeah, 69, I think. Okay. Thank you. So all opposed. All right, motion carries. The next item is that we have a new slate of upcoming board members. So first, Thank you. Come on up, Erin. As she does, I would like to thank our board members who are stepping off of the board. We're going to recognize them more deeply at our board meeting coming up. But first, Laura Birch, Barb Moore, and Barb Longmore have served 3 years on the board, and we are so grateful for their service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. I would first like to recognize the current members of the Leadership Development Team. If you're here, maybe give a little raise of your hand. Joe Downs, Inez Bird, Mike Peterson, Pat McDaniels, and Ann Wilson. Joe Downs and myself will be rotating off of the LDT this year. So, Joe, thank you for your service.
And Erin, yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. On behalf of the Leadership Development Team, I would like to propose the following 3 candidates for membership, members of the board. In no particular order, if you are here, please stand. Kristen Keating, Betsy Sheets, and Rick Stork.
Rick had the lead.
Okay.
Rick had to go. So.
Okay.
Yeah. You can sit down if you'd like. Thank you. So is there any discussion on this proposed slate? Or any nominations from the floor? All right. Right. May I have a motion to approve the slate as proposed? I saw Sue move. Do I have a second? Nancy? Oh, sorry. Snacks, help me. Okay. All in favor?
Mary? 23.
23, 24, 10? 17. All right. Okay, 74 in favor, all opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so much. Next item.
On behalf of the Leadership Development Team, I would like to propose the following 2 candidates for members of the Leadership Development Committee. Please stand if you're present. Vicki Dutter, which I don't think she's here, and Bonnie Group.
All right, is there any discussion or nominations from the floor? All right, do I have a motion to approve the slate as proposed? Nancy? All right, Nancy, Betsy seconds. All right, all in favor?
Sarah?
24. All right, 74 in favor. All opposed? All right, thank you. The motion carries. Thanks so much, Erin. Okay, at this time, I'm going to have Steve step in as chair because I'm going to introduce a few things.
We appreciate everybody sticking around. So we're going to look now at the presentation of the,
Wait.
oh, sorry, are we there?
Did
Are
that
we-
go? Oh, I had other things. Oh, no, you're right. This is our presentation. Thank you. I jumped ahead, sorry.
She's ahead. Anyway, who's doing the budget? You?
Dawn.
Dawn? Dawn Ackerman is going to present the proposed budget for the coming year, which starts July 1.
Hold your applause.
Oh, it didn't work.
All right, I was thinking, it was 3 or 4 years ago, I think, I stood up here as a new member. And around that time, I said to Sarah Miles, please don't ask me to be on Finance Committee. I've been a chief financial officer for 44 years, and I thought, let's try something more fun. And she gave me that Sarah look, and now I'm finance chair. So I think there's a life lesson there. I'm not sure. First, I'll introduce the other members of the Finance Committee. Fred Michelle, I think you were, Jim Bird, Tom Durr, I don't think I saw him, and Dave Drum. I think that's everybody. And then our board rep, and also he's been a vital part of our process, Steve Thomas. And then treasurer Sarah Miles, Vicki Dutter, assistant treasurer, and Jessica Eichelberry is the office assistant. She's the one that enters the expense numbers. Sarah does the revenue numbers, right? All righty. Okay, I'm moving into the new age. I've got a remarkable here, but I can't figure out how to add a new line or space. So if this feels disjointed as I go through, it's because, I thought about that later. So just bear with me on that. The numbers for the current year, just to give you some information, our fiscal year, our budget year, is July through June. So when we're talking about this budget today, we're talking about the budget that starts July 1, 2025. Current budget, we're about 75% through the year as of March 31st, which is the last month we closed. 75% through the year. The pledges we've received so far, we're at 80%, so that's good. We're ahead of the curve on that one, so continue. Those of you that pay monthly, quarterly, whatever, keep that going. And then, I don't know how many people know, but we received I think it was $10,000 even, anonymous donation this year. I have no idea who it was because that's apparently what anonymous means. So that has helped us. Or there's Bob Anonymous, I don't know. And the expenses are currently running about 75%. So those are on target. Hopefully we get all the pledges coming in for this year. The process for doing the budget, because I know this is real exciting to people. The Finance Committee starts the budget process, and we look at, what's happened in the past, what numbers we have from the current year at that point, and what we project, given what we know at that point, for what we think will happen July 1. That we do that around, I think it was towards the end of December. Steve Thomas, Sarah, and I spent a wild Saturday morning using that information and then the requests from the various committees and put together, I guess you could say it was an aspirational budget. Here's what we think we're going to expend for the year, looking at expenses first, starting again July 1, and then if that all played out, the revenue has to match that. At that point, we looked at areas, and I had it written down, categories we had to increase from what is the current year. Health insurance for staff, that went up, and the mortgage interest went up. I don't know if we under budgeted or things really went up in mortgage interest, but those we had to increase. We knew $318,000 in just pledges was going to be a chore to raise, and so at that point, but we balanced the budget just assuming we're going to try and get $318,000. At that point, we handed over to the board and saw the shock on their face. And what we decided, I worked with the board on this. What we decided to do is let's make it a bare bones budget to start. What is the bare minimum we have to run this fellowship? Staffing that is required, sort of maintenance things that are required. You actually have to pay the mortgage, I'm told. So things like that you have to pay. And that took us to, I think it was $267,558. That's the budget. It was a couple weeks ago where Joe presented, here's bare bones, and then we listed some items that if we could get pledges of more than 267 and higher, here are the things that are the critical items to add, meaning we had cut them out of the bare bones. We have to get a sexton to replace Juan, who's doing things for free right now, and so that's going to be a new position. We guesstimated about what we think per hour and how many hours a week that person would have to be paid. We need custodian contract to continue unless somebody volunteers to clean, and I don't think that has happened well in the past. And then, the things we had to, I don't think I wrote those all down here. Oh, here they are. Anyways, membership coordinator, things, when Joe was explaining that to the congregation, you could tell everybody, those are requirements. Well, then the stewardship committee sprinkled their magic foo-foo dust over the congregation, did their magic, and we raised what I'm hearing. I mean, I've only been here 3 or 4 years. It is a record dollar amount of pledges. So I really want to thank the stewardship committee for that. And thank you to everybody who maintained, increased, or pledged for the first time, because you all contributed to that. Plus, we had somebody pledge an additional $10,000, and as a match, I think $5,600 or something like that came in as $6,300 as match. So thank you to everybody that worked on that. What that allowed us to do was to add back custodian, sexton, the nursery workers, and the membership coordinator, and increase some of the line items. And what that left us with was, I think it's around $14,959-ish. And rather than apply that to a budget line item, because as anybody who's run a household or done a budget, there's things you just don't know, or there's items you know are going to go up, but we don't know by how much. So we left that $14,000 as sort of a contingency dollar amount to the health insurance. If it's going to change, is going to change in January, and this year obviously it changed, so that contingency can cover that. Or uncollected pledges, someone who's pledged whatever isn't able to fulfill that. So that $14,000 we would hope would cover that kind of thing. We weren't able to give back. We weren't able to budget all the committee requests. So when you look at the budget, your committee may or may not have what you had requested. We're hoping we'll be able to work some of that stuff out as the year goes on. Another thing that was I understand was a concern is UUA, which is the head honchos in Boston of the UUA, was it national? Yeah. Okay. Reverend Walter leaves the room. I don't know what the word is, request, whatever, that each fellowship contributes 7% of their budget to Boston. We haven't been able to do that for a number of years, but what I'm told is you have to contribute at least 50% of that 7%. For those math challenged, that's 3.5% of your budget in order to be able to vote at the General Assembly. So what we were able to, we had only budgeted in the bare bones 1.75%. So we bumped that up to 3.5%. So hopefully, if we pay that, we're allowed to vote. What I didn't get an answer to, I don't even remember who I asked, is there a deadline for when you have to pay that 50% before they cut off, and if you pay it after, you don't get the vote? Because we're thinking if we pay maybe the first part and then see how the year goes, and then pay the second part, or do you have to pay that all up front? We'll deal with that as we go. But right now, we've budgeted for the 50%. Let's see here. I think, the new year, at this point, there is no Madrigal and there is no garage sale, so those are revenue sources we're not able to include in this year's budget. And the solar energy project is something totally different and apart from this. So I know that's on the agenda for later. That's not a part of this, so if those are questions you have, those can come at that part of it. Are there any comments, additions from the distinguished panel, or any questions, comments from the congregation? Did I explain what you needed explained? Yes.
If you have an idea for a fundraiser or something, who would you talk to?
There's a fundraising committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary, are you still in charge? Mary Wicks in the back. You could talk to Mary.
I'll find you.
Yes.
So when we have excess cash, how do we invest that? What do we do? Is there like a high interest account we put that in, or T-bills, or just curious?
We've got a number of, and we need to do a better job, I know, as a finance committee, of posting financials quarterly for the entire congregation to see. I created a form that, I don't want to say dummies it down, but dummies down the financial statement for common folk that don't do accounting to understand. We need to do a better job of getting that out there. But we do have 3 accounts in Boston that earn interest for us. We've got, I think, 3 checking accounts local, and then 2 CDs. We do have vehicles that if we have excess money, we can do that. And just as the nerd accountant that I am, what net assets in a nonprofit means, that's in the end is your profit, so to speak, since the beginning of time. I work at a nonprofit, so it's not retained earnings, that's a for-profit, but net assets is, your profit, including any capital equipment and whatnot you own. So that's when we say net assets, that carries over. You end this fiscal year, if you end in the positive or in the negative, that changes your net assets to end that year, and then you start a new year. That excites me for some reason. I hear snoring out there. So,
Jay, you have a question?
Yeah, apology if I missed something.
Hold on a sec, Jay.
Thanks. Apology if I missed this in the budget statement, but I don't think it's there. In the quarterly statements, is the principal balance on which we're paying mortgage payments listed, and is the interest rate for our mortgage listed? And if it is not, I'd appreciate if it were.
I don't know that I put it in my version, but yeah, we can add that to it. That probably is information everybody needs to know just to get a sense of. All right. Since you made me become finance chair, I'm pulling you into this one. Yes, Gail.
A couple things. First off, the UUA dues can be paid all at once. They can be paid monthly or quarterly, whatever comfortable for us.
Okay.
Okay?
Is there a deadline when they cut off?
No. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not
At
too
least,
bad.
yeah.
Okay.
But after that, it's now my second question. I just want to get a qualification or make it clear that when committees have fundraisers, the monies that come in from those fundraisers after expenses are paid, that goes back into the general operating fund. It does not go back to the committee.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think people were a little unclear on some of that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's any fundraisers. Like Gail said, after your expenses are met, that goes towards meeting all our expenses as a fellowship, not, the Don committee suddenly has $100 extra to spend on whatever. And it doesn't, if you don't have to spend all of your committee funds, I know I've been on committee, not here, but on committees where, we have $1,000 left, we have to go run out and spend it. Well, if it's not something you need, you don't need to spend that, because then that money could be used for something the fellowship does need, or just carries over to the next fiscal year.
Jay had another question. Jay,
Oh, yes.
Jay has another question.
Just on that issue, and it's a bit complicated, so I would push for some clarifying language, but when we have members on committees and we have a committee expense, some individuals donate and it doesn't show up in the budget and they say, oh, I don't want it back again. But we should make sure that there's never an implication that being on a committee requires you to spend money or contribute money that you're not going to be reimbursed for, because that would deter total
Oh, yeah.
participation.
Yeah, there's never-
But we need some clarifying on that. I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, actually what we're working towards is having an in-kind policy and then some mechanism to record it, because we all know, especially in this congregation, you guys are donating tons of goods, services, whatever, and it'd be a nice way to document that. So going forward, like I always use this example, I buy a lot of the creamers for the coffee, so I save my receipts. If Don gets hit by a bus and nobody buys creamer, we have to know how much we have to spend for creamer. That's a silly example, but just like Juan, right now we're dealing with Juan has donated tons of time over a millennial or whatever, and now we have to replace him. Now we know what Juan was worth, because if no one fills that, he does some of the...
He's worth more than that.
He's worth more than... Oh, yeah. He's priceless. He's in Europe right now, so he probably can't hear that.
Now, you were saying that, the committees don't get the money, it goes toward the general fund, but when the budget is made, doesn't the committee money come out of the general fund when you decide how much they get?
Yeah, if your committee, just for example, asks for $1,000 and that's what your budget is, whatever you use that, whatever expenses you have related to your committee work comes out of that $1,000. But say you have some sort of fundraiser, your committee puts together some sort of fundraiser, and whatever expenses you had for that fundraiser, you bring in more than that, so you have a profit. That profit is what we're talking about. That goes into the general fund. There is no profit for, every single committee. Is that making sense? That's generally how it works in any nonprofit I've been in. What you're fundraising for the greater good, basically. Hope that makes sense.
Are there other questions?
Sarah's. I thought, I called you my wife. Oops. If you're watching, Cheryl, I am so sorry. She's going like this. Shut him up. Is that it?
I think you're done.
All right, thank you.
Everybody here, you need to congratulate yourself, because with everybody's help, we were able to come up with basically a balanced budget. I know that was a controversial thing last year. The budget is currently balanced, but the new budget is balanced, and that's thankful to everybody here. Next. Oh. Okay, we need to have a motion to accept the proposed budget.
I make a motion to accept the 25-26 budget as done by finance.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Terry. Tim, I'm sorry. Okay.
Tim.
To Tim. And so, all in favor of accepting the proposed budget, please raise your card and keep your hands up. Mary, 25? 20, that's 49. Caitlin? 59. That's 76. Yeah. I missed what you're saying.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mine's
All opposed, same sign.
damn. Okay. Motion carried.
Yeah!
Thank you.
We did it. Thank you so much. All right. So the next item, and Steve is stepping in as chair for me because I'm going to introduce something to vote, and that means I'm biased. So the LDT asked us to update the bylaws as refer to them to make it more in line with current practices and reflect what our congregation needs. The wording of the original bylaws is on screen. It has been emailed out multiple times. It is also in the packet over there if you need it. And can I get the proposed new language? All right, so here is the updated language. This changes the size of the LDT and has a few other clarifying items that make it how it is. Aaron or Ann, do either one of you want to say anything on that?
Yes. Well, I don't think it updated the number of committee members.
Updated number.
Also, confirmed you have to be a member to be on the LDT. There was some kind of gray area if a friend could also be on the LDT.
Right.
It wasn't clear. So this specifies that you do have to be a member and only 5 to 7 members. The previous bylaw stated 9 members, and we
right.
haven't had 9 on the committee for the past few years.
Several years, yeah. Okay, thank you. There was also a recommendation to change some of the language in this update, making it say open seat instead of resigned member, and saying that an appointee of the board would fill that seat, and clarifying that it's not the whole board filling the seat at once.
Is there any discussion on this proposed change? Okay.
I motion we vote on this bylaw. As amended.
As amended. And Janice is seconding it? And Scott was?
Scott moves, Janice
And
second.
Janice, okay. Okay. All in favor of accepting the proposed amendment? $25. Sarah?
All right,
That's a 76.
76.
Thank you, guys. The motion carries. Thank you again.
Wait, were there anybody
Oh,
opposed?
sorry. Anybody opposed?
All right, great.
Now the motion carries.
All right, so I really appreciated all the question on policies that we had during the budget proposal, because I wanted to let you know we are putting together a small committee, thank you, Bert, to write several policies that have been requested. We are expecting to work on a donation policy, something about decorations, alcohol, food labeling, personnel, fundraising. If you have more, please feel free to email me and I will add them to the list. But also, if your committee would like a policy, we encourage you to put together a draft of that policy to present to the board. That makes the board's work a lot simpler to then review our mission and vision, review the policy, and align them, and then come back to you. We usually do not vote on policies. It's not in our bylaws that we are required to vote on policies. The board will prepare, approve them. Sometimes we put them up for comment so that there's a 30-day period that you can review them, and then they are implemented. But it is not a congregational vote. Several years ago, we voted on a display policy, and then changes to that were voted on last year. So the board has a proposed addendum to that policy that we are going to put up for vote. So the display policy is what allows us to have the flag out front. Our most recent vote was that it would be up every Sunday and for the month of June. Currently, if someone would like to put up a sign or a flag, they need to give 30-day notice. There's a congregational meeting. There is voting. So that makes it difficult to respond to events in a timely manner if the congregation feels strongly about it. So the board has put together an addendum that allows for an emergent response. So if there is, for example, shooting at a nightclub and we want to put the flag up for a longer period of time in response to that. This proposes that the board would be allowed to vote to do that and then inform the congregation about what's being done and the length of time it will be done for. Are there questions on this?
If the board votes on something about what's being done and how long it'll be done for, would there also be a why we're doing this in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, that would be part of the proposal that we would vote on. Yeah, great question. And one of the things that limits this is that this would be limited to statements the congregation has already voted on. Ann, would you advance one slide for me? This is the list of statements that the congregation voted to approve in the original display policy that are statements that are on our sign. All right, let's see if I can read them.
Do you want me to read them?
Yes, please, I'd love it.
The statements that are currently on the sign out front could be: believe science is real, place our planet before profit, believe kindness is everything, say climate change is real, welcome you, whoever you are, believe in the value of the earth, believe women's rights are human rights, believe Black Lives Matter, believe no human is illegal, side with justice for all, say climate change is real, side with love, and value diversity.
I really wanted climate change on there. I put it on twice. Sorry about that.
So is there any further? Yes, Don.
So what you're saying is these are the statements that are could be on a sign.
Or maybe there's a flag in line with these statements that gets put up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Steve, can you read that?
Do you want me to read the whole thing there, Ann?
Well, I don't see anywhere it's written, so I don't know.
Okay. The rapid response is the UUFWC recognizes that events occur in our world that we would like to respond to more currently than allowed for in the time it takes to call a congregational meeting. With that in mind, the UUFWC Board of Directors is entrusted with the authority to approve or deny signage and flags placed on the frontage, as long as the signage or flags placed are directly in line with UUFWC values and with the previously approved UUFWC statements. Those statements are, which is what we just read. And then on the following, when the board makes a determination of this nature, they will send out an email to the congregation informing of their decision and tying it to UU values. For example, in the event of an attack on the LGBT community, we may elect to fly the Progress Pride flag for a week, and we'll email the congregation with that update and the reasoning. Thank you, Ann, for asking for that. Any other comments or discussion on that? Walter?
Can I see the slide of
the statement sign?
You'll notice none of those are for the LGBTQ community. I just want to point that out. So by the bylaws, technically, it might look like we are not including the LGBTQ community in that. I am hoping the implicit part is we've done the welcoming congregation work, and that would be part of aligning with our values. And I just wanted to hope that that was, understood.
At some point, we could add the phrase, "We are a welcoming congregation," on that list of things we can put in the sign.
I do think
Well-
the flag is a dead giveaway.
Well, there is one that says, welcome you, whoever you are. And we could go with the value diversity as being that too, or helping in that.
Yeah, I also noticed the exact same thing Walter noticed. So I am curious how, because this is my first time in an annual meeting, how do we add statements to this list?
I would say, at this point, suggest them to the board. Write to the board, or through the fellowship, through the secretary, so that we have some idea, so that the board can discuss them. and then bring them to you guys too.
Just context on this, just the preamble to all those statements on the sign is, in this house, we believe in blah, 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 blah. So that's what's on the sign out front.
Great comments and suggestions. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none at this point, could I have a motion to accept these changes? Ann moved. Second. Bonnie, second. Sorry. Okay. All in favor of accepting the proposed amendment and change, please hold up your cards. We'll give your arm a rest eventually.
Switch arms.
Yeah.
Downside.
Mary, 26? Yes, ma'am. 60. 77. Okay, all opposed? Okay, at this point, the motion carries. Thank you very much for that. I'm giving the chair back to Joe, the president. She only has a couple more months. Come on, she's done a great job.
Thank you. All right, so next up, we're going to have Fred talk to us some about the solar project. We are so lucky to have Fred's knowledge and willingness to share that with us. And he made really good slides, too.
Thank you, Joe. One of the reasons, I think, or two of the reasons we joined the UU is the two reasons in the mission, really, are the community, you all, and the way you interact with our greater community, and also respect for the environment. And we were especially happy to be worshiping in a LEED Gold building, really the first one in the United States, which is our church here. So I'm going to present a little bit of information about the existing solar system, which puts in a few years ago, and then talk about a new proposal we have. And I'll be quick. So here's a few details about our LEED church building, and it was built in 2006 and expanded in 2022. And there's a number of features that you've probably noticed, and some maybe you haven't, that reduce our carbon footprint for the building and utilize things like recycled materials and ways of constructing the building that were less impactful in the environment. Next slide. So in 2013, we had a proposal to install solar to go along with the building. We installed 23 kilowatts on top of the roof here. It was 96 panels. It was installed by Third Sun and with some help from Gross Construction. It cost about $65,000 was the installed cost. At that time, we got an incentive for $32,000 from AEP, which we've taken advantage of. The total cost to the UU, or the cost of the system, was $32,700. Now, we had donations by members, and at that time, we didn't have this huge taxable deduction on your taxes. It was less, so you could take advantage of donations for this type of a thing. So if you look at what actually the members paid, considering their deductions on their tax, it was about $22,000 for that system. The value of energy produced, and this was up to about a year ago, so it was a little bit more than what I have here, has been so far about $40,380. So the system's paid for itself as far as what our contributions were, donations. And the system has another, it's about 12, 13 years old now. It has another 15 to 20 years of life left. So the way to look at that is we've paid the system off. We're getting free electricity for 15 or 20 years. It's so far produced about 283 megawatt hours of electricity, prevented the emissions of 150 tons of CO2, which is equivalent to the emissions of a Chevy driven about 400,000 miles or a Prius driven almost 1 million miles. Next slide. So with the expanded building, we've increased our electricity use. And these are numbers based on our electric bills since the original building was constructed. And these are averages for those periods of time. So in the original building, we used on average about 53,000 kilowatt hours, and today we're using about 92,000 kilowatt hours. And that's just for the couple of years since the new addition's been added. And I kind of got rid of some of the COVID months, so those weren't included when we weren't actually coming here. So you can see the increase there, and a lot of it's in the winter time where we're using heat pumps for heating in the building. So this is another little, looking at a little bit more. This is during the period with the original solar system in the original building. And you see we're about 50% solar at that time. And just a little detail about solar energy. Some of the solar energy we use immediately in the building, and other we put on the grid, and it comes back to us with net metering. But the electricity we use immediately is worth about twice as much as what we put on the grid and pull back, because we don't get the same amount for that. So that's what I've shown here. So a lot of the energy we do use immediately, and especially in the wintertime. So this is the new building with the existing solar system that we have now, today. And we're about 29% solar at this point with the existing system. And you can see we have a lot of energy use from the grid here, which is represented in orange. Next slide. So what I proposed that we start looking at solar and see what we could do to maybe get closer to net zero in the building. And we had a subcommittee comprised of me and Peg Redenbaugh and Peter Schatz, I'm sorry, who reviewed a couple of proposals that we got. One was from Kokosing and one from Paradise Solar. And we looked at this one, and it looked like it had was a lower cost, and really we'd had experience with this company before in our previous system as well. And so we elected to look at that system. And this system has the same number almost of our original system, 98 panels, but the panel efficiency is increased so much that we're producing almost double what we would have in the original system. And you can see on this slide where these panels would go. And we particularly wanted to be able to see the panels, because at this point, if you come here as a new member and you look, you don't even realize that for a year or two. Somebody tells you. But so there would be some panels right above this entrance area here, which you can see from the parking lot. And some may be mistaken that that's giving us all this energy, but it won't be. Okay, next slide, please. So this shows our electric bill with and without the new solar addition. And this is taken from both my review, but also the analysis done by Kokosing Solar. So when you pay for your electric bill, you pay part of it is for the electricity generated, and then a large part is also for the transmission fee and the distribution fee, and that pays for the wires and the telephone poles and all that kind of thing outside of the church. So even if we produced all the energy we use, we wouldn't be able to have a zero bill. And some say, well, why don't we get batteries to do that? Well, a battery-powered system, you can't really store energy from the summer and use it in the winter. You could store it from one day to the next, but not that way. And so if you did have a battery storage system when you were off-grid, you'd have a system 3 times the size of this at least to be able to give you energy in the wintertime. And you'd produce a lot of excess energy, and you wouldn't be able to give it to the community through net commuting for others to use.
So are we saving our energy from summer to winter?
We are, because we essentially use the grid as a battery. So our extra energy from the summer goes on the grid, and we get credited for that, and we take it off in the wintertime. And that's how this new system would work as well. But we'd be closer to net zero over the whole year. Next slide. So this is just a summary of how much we spend on energy and how much it would cost with the new system and how much the old system contributed. So you can see from 2006 to 2012, we used about 69,000 kilowatt hours a year, and our average bill per year is about $6,400. And hearing that we have a budget of $300,000, I guess this isn't that much, but to me it seemed like a lot. But when we put on the new 23 kilowatt system, our average bill went down to about $3,800 a month. And our build use declined considerably too, by more than half. So in the new building, with the existing solar system, our bill is quite a bit higher. It's about $11,000 a year for the electricity. With this new system, which would be the 23 kilowatt system plus the 45 kilowatt system added, we'd be about 68 total, and our bill would go down to about $5,000 per year. So a considerable amount of savings there. Next slide. So how much would it cost for us to do this? The total cost for the system in our first estimate, and we're getting another one, which is going to update this a little bit, but it shouldn't be much different than this, is $114,000. Now, in our area, we get a 30% federal tax credit in addition to a 10% credit because we're in a petroleum industry community. And that gives us another 10%. So we get a 40% tax credit. And previously, we couldn't take advantage of those. Only people who paid taxes could do that. But the new IRA allowed us nonprofits to take advantage of that. And the way that works is you put in the system, you get a tax ID number, you file a tax form, and you take credit for that, and you get a payment the following year. So in the environment we are now, there's questions about what happens with these sorts of incentives. Will they be taken back? What's going to happen with those? And it's not clear what's going to happen with those. The money that goes for these has been removed from the federal government, apparently, is under the administration of a bank. So getting it back is difficult. And the courts have ruled that they cannot take that money back at the moment, but who knows what will happen in the future. So it's unclear about what the incentives at this point.
So my next question is, my question is, because I'm looking into a small battery pack for at home, and I know right now we have some equipment here in the United States. How are the tariffs going to affect this build? Because most of this stuff is manufactured outside of this country.
So as I understand it, we've asked that question to Third Sun, and they've said that they already have this equipment in a warehouse somewhere. Because they put in many systems and they pre-buy things. So they have pallets and pallets of panels waiting to go. So that may change in the future, and maybe the near future, maybe a little longer, but I'm sure it will be affected eventually.
Fred, I haven't heard you talk about carbon credit. So we have a system on our barn that Paradise put in, and we get a check every 3 months.
Right. So solar renewable energy credits were something we took advantage of on our home as well. And when they first started, which was in 2009, 2010, you would get $300 to $400 per 1,000 kilowatt hours payment for that renewable thing. Those are now worth in Ohio only $5 or $10 per 1,000 megawatt because we stopped having the goal of being 25% renewable in our state. Our legislature got rid of that. They also got rid of energy efficiency rules, where we were trying to reduce our energy use in the state by 25%. They got rid of that as well. And if you talk to legislators now, with all of these storage systems they're building in Columbus for both for AI and people storing stuff, their pictures and things like that down in Columbus. All these companies are building huge plants to do that. Our energy use in the state is supposed to go up something like 30 or 40% in 10 years, just for that. So you hear about like Intel and them coming in here and Amazon building these massive plants in Columbus and how many jobs it's going to get. Well, it's also going to massively increase our energy use. And those companies, fortunately, are asking for renewable energy. So there's a conflict now between utility-scale solar systems and these organizations which want only to use renewable energy in those systems. But anyway, that's coming down the road. But that it probably means that in the future our electricity costs will go up in the state just to meet that. Because if we're not putting in renewables and we don't have the capacity to produce the energy that's going to go up 30 to 40%, we'll be buying expensive energy from outside the state or that kind of thing. So anyway, but I did put that here. There is some value to that, and that was on our proposal. So you can see that as the third line down. It's about $7,000. So the incentives from the 40% tax credit would be $45,000. The incentives in the RECs, which we would sell up front, would be $6,000 or $7,000. So the net cost would be $61,000 approximately. So the payback period on that would be about 10 years. The electricity bill savings alone, not considering the cost of the system, would be about $240,000 over the 30-year life of the system. The net savings, including the cost that we would pay, would be $180,000 with incentives. If we didn't get any incentives at all, it would be $130,000 over 30 years. So enough to pay the budget for a half a year maybe, or 3/4 of a year, depending on which we get. Yeah. So in order, go ahead.
Over the next 10 years?
This is based on the assessment by Kokosing, and they do look at the increase rate. I didn't put those assumptions on there, but it's a historical rate, which is something like 2 to 3% per year for the cost to go up.
But I think there's some non-contested, this is Jay over here, non-contested that with not only the big increases in need for power, Ohio is currently a net importer of energy, I believe, that there's going to be a big increase in demand, but also because the way top priority first call energy has really potentially going to go up multiples of inflation rate per kilowatt hour. Whatever our estimates of savings are, probably are a minimum savings, because there's projections that the power rates are going to go up per kilowatt hour dramatically.
Yeah, I would agree that these are done by engineers who are very conservative in their estimates. So we're likely to see a little bit more than that. And if, in fact, my estimates are usually greater than what the companies do, because they don't consider that difference in value of energy that's used directly. They also didn't consider our existing solar system. They just consider their new system they're putting on, compared to us. So there's a few little nuances in how you calculate those. So I would say this was, a good estimate of at least what we would be seeing. Next slide. Okay, so just in conclusion, our existing system has provided both environmental and financial benefits. It's already paid back its cost. It's reduced our CO2 emissions by 150 tons, and it's reduced $40,000 of electricity. There's significant incentives available from the IRA, which are still being paid out. For example, the car payments. If you have a used electric car, you can still get the $4,500 payment. If you buy a new electric car, you get a $7,500 payment from the federal government. Those have continued and have not been affected. There's still talk about what they may or may not do to these other incentives. The new system, a 45 kilowatt system, would save $180,000 over 30 years, or $130,000 with no incentives, and reduce our carbon footprint by about 39 metric tons per year. So equivalent to 43,000 pounds of coal burned per year, and provide 86% of our energy. I think the time is now, really, for many reasons, to reduce our carbon footprint and electricity costs, and I think we can do that. I think it also displays continued environmental leadership in our community as well to others about what can be done. So,
yeah,
thanks.
Thank you so much, Fred. Yes. So next steps on this are that we will likely be doing a meeting coming up soon where we can vote to approve a capital campaign if we intend to go forward with this. Before that, we'll have some informational sessions, and we'll get a finalized estimate from the engineers there. Right now, they are running their numbers and looking at roof details and such.
And I know that there have been offers already of pre-pledge for this. What fraction of the current, or what total dollar amount has been communicated to you of what is already committed from congregation members?
I don't really have a number, but I do have many people who have said they'd like to contribute to this effort.
Because I think that's important for everyone else to realize, is that there's a really strong urge for this, and that there are some pockets willing to cover a lot of this already.
Yeah, thank you. Can I have stewardship come up and give, oh, there was one more comment, sorry. While stewardship comes up to get ready to give their final update.
I don't know who to ask about this observation I've had. When we built the building with all these lights so that we didn't run lights in the daytime, but if you come in here in the middle of the week and you're the only one in the room, all the lights go on. And I don't know how to fix that. It seems such a waste.
Our very high-tech solution is put a Post-it note over the sensor.
Hopefully some flick-off signs. Flick-off signs, should we get those? Flick-off? Or how about the other thing yesterday? Eat, what was that?
No. Okay. That's a really good question. Barb, will you put that in the minutes so we can address that coming up about the lights? Okay, thank you so much. All right.
I can also tell you that I did put up a block of a sensor and it's not there anymore. So.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good, Tony.
Oh. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everybody. Like I said, we had a very successful stewardship campaign this year, and it's been, impressive, how much the congregation is able to donate, but also to demonstrate, how much everybody values this fellowship. Scott's going to talk about some specific things in terms of kind of the realities of what's coming up in terms of our committee and what we're going to need for that. Scott and I are both rotating off after this year. I think it's been 8 years for me and 6 years for Scott. So I think it's time for other people to participate. And I tell you, it's an invaluable insight into kind of the behind the scenes and like the health of this congregation to be on stewardship. So.
What percentage of your time there was asking people for money? Because I think people coming on want to know that.
Oh. Generally speaking, I mean, our committee, and Scott can talk about this a little bit more too, our committee it's not a year-round committee. In one sense it is, but in reality it's not. We pretty much begin meetings sometime October or November, and then the really busy time is probably February and March. And then, then there's another period of quiet time, and then we don't really meet at all over the summer. So it's not a very time-intensive committee, except for a short period of time where it's fairly time-intensive, but that's coming, and the work is very well divided up amongst everybody else. And it's not entirely about asking for money. It's, we meet about other things. We come up with a theme. We come up with, how we're going to advertise, what prize you're going to get, in this year, the medallions that were handmade, but we already have lots of, people who've been here for years have probably many trinkets and other things from stewardship committee. So it's more than just the ask for the money.
Thanks, Tony. So, it's not much of an ask. I'm in sales. I do that all day long. This is pretty easy from that standpoint. It's mostly emails. That's what it's doing, and keeping track and communicating that way. And so, this year was a fantastic year. We want to be thankful for the anonymous donor, right? That was very helpful. That raised another $12,600 for us. So that was wonderful. Yeah. And just in general, everybody was so generous and helpful. It was a great time this year. I do want to call out Mary Wicks and Bonnie, because under their tutelage we learned a lot, and they're always welcome to come back to stewardship if they want. We're just overwhelmed with response, and I'll echo what Tony said, but we can't assume that's going to happen every year, right? So we just got to think about that for next year, and please really consider joining stewardship. It is a lot of fun. You get to know a lot of people, and it's not about asking money. It's more about communicating, working together as a team. I feel like I'm overselling this, but, No, And Don, I won't tell you who the anonymous donor is, sorry. You won't be able to get that out of me. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I will say I loved this year's campaign. I was full of warm fuzzies whenever I thought about this congregation for like 3 straight months. So thank you. I loved it. All right. We spoke at the committee council meeting in April. Was that 2 weeks ago? Oh my God. Okay. a couple of weeks ago about how our current congregational size makes us a programmatic congregation that requires a lot more leadership from committees and leaders in the congregation. Can I ask you to stand up if you have been on a committee this year? It's a lot of people. And I know that there's many more who are not here today.
Can we have like anybody who's taught RE as well?
Yes, also if you have taught RE, please stand. Yeah, that is part of a committee, I would say. Yeah. So thank you all so much for your leadership. It makes a huge difference in making the congregation what it is. If you haven't been able to be on a committee yet, I just want to personally encourage you to consider it. This is not as the board. This fall, there will be a committee fair to introduce you to our wide variety of committees and their open positions. Being part of several committees over my time here created opportunities for many of the deepest relationships that I've built here and gave me different views of congregants than I would have had without them. It's a really neat way to get to know people on a deeper level. Thank you. Next up, not all of our staff are here today, but if you are on staff, would you please stand up? Oh, you count, Shan. All right, and Karen, thank you so much for all that you do. I hear regularly about every single one of our staff, including those that are not here because Jess and Joanna are not able to be here today, about how much each individual contributes to the congregation, to our better lives, to making it a welcoming and warm place to be. Thank you so much. And that's all I have. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate your time. Walter's going to talk fast for the next few things, right?
Yeah, we're doing the small end.
Thank you, sorry.
I don't know about fast, but... So I have an award I call the Small End Ministry Award. And it's the Small End Ministry because we all do ministry to some extent. I get the title, you get the work. And you all do wonderful work. You do a lot of really good stuff. And what I like to do with this award is to lift up people who often do ministry that don't get a lot of recognition. Because everyone says to me, what about Juan? Everybody knows what Juan does. Everybody sees Juan. He is a very visible presence. His work is invaluable. I will never contest that. I mean, let's face it, Juan is like one whisper away from staff. And I was thinking about who are the people I see who embody the spirit of this congregation quietly and consistently. And after a while, I realized I had two people and I could not pick between the two. And neither one of them is in the room, I will just say. One of them left probably to go do some cleaning, and that's Sue Gross. Because that's not what she does. Sue quietly does the small things in the kitchen. She does the small things that needed to be done with the cakes. And what we often forget is the invaluable work she does with the lay pastoral care team. How many of you have gotten a note or a letter or a text message from Sue Gross just to check in with you? Tell me that's not ministry. And the second person, who is also not here because they are currently helping teach the Coming of Age program, is Steve Berg. Also on the lay pastoral care team. I talked to Kelly Chandler. It's like, do you have anyone you think does a lot of work and goes unnoticed? And she didn't even take a breath. Steve Berg. If there is something that the teens need, they need someone to help out. If she needs an emergency assistant in RE, he is there like that. doesn't even question it. I'm here. These are two folks to me that embody the spirit of what it means to give in this congregation. And if they were here, I'd make them come up and give them their chalices, but they are not. So let's give them a loud roar of applause that they can hear all the way down the building. And I will find them and I will give them these. Are you kidding? No, couldn't happen. Not that thing. And now we're at the end where we do our... I can't technically motion, but I said, can we adjourn? Can I get a motion from the floor to adjourn? We're going to first...
Gail.
With Gail, and second with Betsy. All in favor? Opposed?
It carried.
Motion carries. Dave, see me after.